Okay, let's begin then. So, as I say, welcome to today's latest MGAA webinar. Today we are joined by another supplier member, SSP, who will be talking about all the world of Agile in an innovation world. For those people who joined us for the webinar last week, this was a bit of a focus for the webinar, the Q&A and discussion panel that we had. So hoping that Stephen will be able to go into a little bit more detail in terms of innovation and take it to the next level. So it'll be a really good kind of segue from that webinar into this one. Stephen, if you can just go through to the next slide, thank you. For those of you who are regulars, I always run through a few housekeeping points. All participants are automatically muted apart from the speakers. This is just to ensure that everyone has the same user experience and the speaker can be heard clearly. We always want these to be as engaging as we can make them, so we do encourage people to ask questions during the webinar, and you can do this by hitting the chat button where a panel will appear. And if you just type a question, it'll come through to me and I will raise that to Stephen at the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. The webinar is being recorded. You should have got a message when joining, just in case anyone isn't aware. The recording will be added to our website at the end of this as a podcast, so people can use and listen to this in the future. And then finally, we'll be sending around some feedback forms for the session, just to understand how your experience was of it. Was the content useful, and had we met all our objectives? If we could just go through to the next slide, Stephen. So before we start the presentation, we just have the one speaker today from SSP. Stephen has worked for SSP, is the eyes and ears in the insurance and technology markets for 3 years. Through interaction with market analysts, in-depth analysis of market reports and conversations with MGAs, insurers and brokers, he's built up a really strong understanding of where the market is heading. And he advises both internally and externally based on the findings and the relationships that he's built up over the last few years. So without further ado, I will pass over to Stephen, who will run through the main body of the presentation. Stephen.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining, everyone. If you're anything like me, I'm calling from the world's hottest office today. I do thank you for joining, and hopefully I'll be interesting enough to keep you awake in this heat. So, topic for today is Agile innovation, and where we're going with this, the learning objectives. I just want to start by just giving a basic understanding of the principles and the benefits of Agile delivery, from a software perspective. So that's where Agile was first developed. So looking at how Agile is used effectively within the software industry. But then I think more interestingly, how those principles have then been adopted by other industries, and then going on to how it's transcended into insurance industry, so for insurers and MGAs, and how they're utilizing these methodologies for business benefits. By the end, hopefully you'll be able to list 3 kind of key steps you can put in place to begin to innovate within your MGA business in a more agile manner. So that's where we're going. As I say, we'll start with Agile delivery and software. So Agile was sort of launched as a concept in 2001, and it's really kind of this model was born within software development initially. So we'll look at that first. The principles of Agile themselves are pretty simple. So when approaching an opportunity, an organization will create small cross-functional teams that manage themselves, and these teams are focused on delivering essentially the best outcome for the customer. So they begin by brainstorming ideas. They rank each of these ideas based on the estimated value that idea has to the customer. And then they break these top priority tasks into even smaller modules, which they begin building in kind of short sprint cycles. There's daily stand-ups which act as the feedback loop to review on progress. And once these small increments are built, they're sent to the customer for testing. And if popular, they're implemented, even if it's only at kind of an MVP stage, so that implementing it quick rather than waiting for everything to be 100% complete. Might be easier to visualize it, I guess. So the traditional model before Agile was waterfall, which is basically a predictive process which started with kind of long and detailed requirement gathering, then full design phase, and then the entire product was developed and tested as a complete solution. So I think this method generally had some incorrect assumptions. So it assumed the customer knew what they wanted from the outset, and it assumed the developers knew how to build it. So there wasn't really any room for adaptation or iteration within the development process. You kind of stuck to the brief, if you like. Agile delivery is entirely different. So it's founded basically on the principle that at the start of production, you don't have complete knowledge. So you're actually going to discover what you need as you go through the building process. So you need to be adaptive. As knowledge grows, the plans change. So shorter sprints help provide the framework which allow changes to happen along the way. And that's what provides the agility and kind of gave birth to this agile delivery principle within software. Note, if you look, the teams are cross-functional, so the customer, the developers, the designers, the testers are all involved from the very beginning, and they're included in every stage of development and iteration. That process has led to a 300% improvement in software development project success rate. So it has been a hugely successful shift from the waterfall approach to this more agile way of delivering software. If we go into a little bit more of the details of, okay, where are these improvements coming from? So there's a 76% reduced project risk, whilst 77% faster time to market. So if you think about that as two concepts there, the project is more likely to succeed in a quicker time. The team are more motivated, have better morale, and are more productive, and they're able to manage the change in priorities in a better way. So combine all of these factors together, it's kind of no wonder the success rate in agile delivery is so high. So I only wanted to touch very briefly on what's happening in the software market, because that's probably of less interest to you, but it's just to show the basis of this principle has delivered significant improvements in software delivery. And now what we're seeing is that these benefits are transcending software development into other verticals as agile practices are taken up by other companies across multiple industries. So you're kind of seeing the exact same benefits: 200 to 400% accelerated new product delivery at lower cost, better employee engagement, improved customer satisfaction. Basically, the delivery of new products and features using agile delivery principles is delivering tangible business benefits for organizations outside of the software industry. So I thought it might be good at that point to then, let's do a case study of an organization outside of software who have adopted agile processes well. I thought I'd take a very high profile example. So we're going to look at Amazon, and I've chosen Amazon not just because they're high profile, but I genuinely believe that they've mastered agile, and that is a large part of why they've been so successful over recent years. What we know about Amazon basically is when they enter an industry, they tend to win. But the reason that they win is because they never stay still. They never maintain the existing business model. Actually, they change the business model, and they adapt in an agile manner in order to keep up to pace with changing customer expectations. So, you know, in 94, they started as a bookseller. They launched the Kindle in 2007, and now they've got 83% of US ebook sales. So adapted their book selling model in line with customer requirements. AWS was actually born out of merchant.com. So merchant.com was an e-commerce site. And as they were setting up the e-commerce site, they realized that they needed to produce a series of kind of well-documented and standardized APIs. And they very quietly became a service company as they improved that service and then started to externalize it. And now it's a 9 billion annual revenue business unit. Again, you could see the same for Amazon Prime and Amazon Echo, and they've changed the offering over the years in order to grow their business. So how do they do that? What is the agile business model that they implement in order to be able to operate in this innovative way? Jeff Bezos, he's got an underlying principle which he runs Amazon on, and that is that the cost of being slow is far greater than the cost of not getting the answer exactly right. It's kind of another way of saying don't let perfection get in the way of good, but I think it's more than that. I think it's a deeper business model than that, because so he goes on to specify that he operates essentially on the idea that decisions should be made with around 70% of the information that you've got, or the information that you'd like. Because if you wait till you've got 90%, you're going to be too late. And then I think the important bit in terms of Agile is if you're good at course correcting, being wrong might be less costly than you think, whereas being slow is definitely going to be expensive. It's all about pace of delivery, course correction. And I think that lies at the very heart of Agile innovation. So we go into their business model in a little bit more detail. So there's 3 key pillars that I'm going to talk about. And I know some of these would have been touched upon last week, but I think they're useful in terms of reiterating. So number 1 is a customer obsession, having a mindset that is obsessed with the customer. Number 2 is then organizing the company to be innovative. And I'm going to go into these in more detail in a second. And number 3 is a focus on operational excellence. And all of those 3 pillars are underpinned by big data, i.e. there's a feedback loop of data that tests how effectively these 3 things are being done. If we take these one by one, so customer obsession, Jeff Bezos calls this the secret sauce of Amazon. It's kind of the number 1 thing that sets them apart. Why do you think that? Because he says that most companies are actually competitor focused. They say they're customer focused, but they're actually competitor focused. And his quote, if you're competitor focused, you have to wait until there is a competitor doing something. Being customer focused allows you to be more pioneering. And you can see that, I mean, across the whole Amazon buying journey. So when you're just being made aware of a product on Amazon, you've got personalized adverts on your social media, recommendations based on previous buys and so on. They form a view of you as a person and are able to then make you aware of products that are useful to you. When you're considering which product to buy and weighing up kind of the pros and cons of similar products, you've got a whole choice of suppliers. You can filter by price, you can compare 2 products based on price, based on spec. There's detailed descriptions, and we'll come back to this, there's customer reviews, and I think that's a big influencer in terms of consideration. They make the purchase journey obviously very easy. You can do it in 1 click nowadays. And then there's a whole load of activity that happens in order to try and get you to come back and buy again. So not necessarily the same product, but buy again from the same company. So that'll be, tracking the order, keeping you updated regularly. Some drop a thanks for buying kind of note, then make suggestions of you might also like this, working really hard to retain your business. All those 4, so 1 to 4, ultimately drives customer advocacy. So how likely is a customer to recommend the product to someone else? And what we're seeing now, probably in the last 5 years or so, is that is really growing. And my buying decision as a consumer is based and driven on someone else's review. I might never have met this person, but it's driven on their review and their assessment of the customer experience that they've had. So customer obsessed mindset, and then setting up the business to be innovative and to operate agilely. So picture of 2 pizzas there. So I think it's quite famous. Amazon believe in the 2 pizza rule. So any team that cannot be fed by 2 pizzas is too big. So they set up small cross-functional teams that are tasked with delivering innovation. So these 2 pizza teams, they operate in silos. So the high flyers in Amazon don't necessarily have massive teams below them or fancy job titles, but they're given ownership of specific innovations, and that's where the leaders in Amazon sit. They own their own data, they've got their own budget, that's how they operate. And then they operate in that agile manner of build it, test it, iterate it, constantly changing. And that's being underpinned by the data, the customer metrics that are analyzing the success, basically, of an opportunity, of an innovation. And then operational excellence. And I don't think this is divorced from customer experience, because I think to deliver the best, say, Amazon didn't become a logistics success just for the sake of it. It became a logistics success because it delivers a better customer experience. How do they do that? So again, it's the innovative mindset that's at the very heart of Amazon. So they run something called a Kaizen project, which essentially encourages staff to come up with ways to improve productivity. Kaizen means change for better in Japanese. An example, one Las Vegas team working in a fulfillment center came up with a solution which streamlined customer returns process and improved productivity by 34%. So what they've got is they've got a mindset internally of constantly looking to streamline and improve processes. And part of that will be automation. So Amazon are kind of working towards having entirely automated workshops, but they reckon they're probably 5 to 10 years away from that. But we do know at the moment they use 100,000 plus robots within their fulfillment centers. And what do they then do with the workers that previously did those jobs? They essentially repurpose them to do roles where humans are better than robots. So I don't think it's at every warehouse, but in America, some warehouses will pay employees up to £10,000 to move from warehouse to last mile delivery, because last mile delivery is best done by humans, whereas the warehouse stuff is increasingly being better implemented by robots. That's an example outside of software development, but also outside of insurance. So I wanted to take that as an example, as a model, and see how it can transcend into the insurance market. I think the first thing to say is that it's a tricky thing, and many insurers and MGAs are finding it difficult to do this. I think part of the reason they're finding it difficult is perceptions. So the quotes, so this is all taken from a Boston Consulting Group report, but the quotes are from insurance executives. So what reasons are there? What are the kind of blockers to innovation within insurance? I think number one is products. There's kind of a view that so much of the value in insurance products is tied up in existing products. So for an MGA, at least part of your revenue stream is renewals. And so there's a huge amount of value tied up in existing products. And so there's a perception at times that there's not a need to rapidly innovate products because there's a whole load of value tied up in existing products. Distribution, I think, again, this is probably very, very pertinent for MGAs, is quite often don't have those touch points with the end customer. So you distribute via brokers means there's a kind of middleman in between yourself and the policyholder. So there's a perception of, okay, I don't need to innovate the customer experience because I'm not dealing with the end customer. Legacy systems, this has been a bit of an industry buzzword for 10 years or so, but legacy systems don't lend themselves to agile working. Why don't they lend themselves to agile working? Because they're not adaptive. An MGA might want to completely rebuild or reinvent themselves, but the legacy systems prevent them from doing that. And then finally, talent and culture. Insurance as an industry is very much a risk-averse industry anyway, by very nature. And there's not necessarily the innovative mindset, and there's, the innovative talent doesn't naturally gravitate towards the insurance industry. But I would say, I think the InsurTechs are changing that. I think we're starting to see coming into the industry people with a different mindset, with an innovative mindset, driven by the InsurTechs entering the market. So I've talked quite quickly there. So I wanted to stop and do a quick poll in terms of what do you guys think is limiting innovation within insurance market and particularly within the MGA market. So I think there should be a poll that comes up on the screen now, if that's possible. There we go. So what do you think is the biggest blocker to innovation of those kind of 4 things that I just talked through there?
Just having a few more answers come through, Stephen. Bear with me. It looks like we've got a good takeaway, so I will share the results.
Okay, so that's an interesting outcome, I guess. So the value of existing products being no one answered that. I think that's actually probably a little bit more of an insurer problem versus an MGA problem. So MGAs kind of exist, at least in part, to fit the niche, to sit into the gaps where insurers wouldn't want to provide those products. That's where you guys as MGAs come in. So I think that makes sense. Legacy systems do continue to be a problem. That probably doesn't surprise me that that's the biggest one. So that's interesting. I'm going to go through in a little bit more detail in a bit later as to some maybe practical steps that can be taken around improving those areas that we've mentioned there. So as I mentioned, I think there's a little changing of the tide with the InsurTech revolution in terms of innovation within the insurance market, and I'm going to get onto it in a bit, and specifically within the MGA market. Previously, I guess insurers and MGAs, when they were coming under competition, had a couple of options. Could have cut prices to drive revenue, look to cut expenses to drive profitability, or possibly run a kind of marketing campaign to improve brand image. Again, maybe that sits a little bit more on the insurer side, that third one. But now I think because there is such a high level of digital disruption within the industry, far more substantial changes are needed than that. To quote Accenture here, insurers, MGAs require degrees of flexibility and agility that kind of would have been unimaginable in the past. In fact, competitive agility has become almost a hygiene factor. It's a key requirement for insurers and MGAs striving to succeed in an industry where digital disruption is only going to grow. So I thought, how do we deliver that? How can MGAs deliver this? I thought it'd be quite useful to go through the Amazon model and look at ways in which the insurance industry and MGAs in particular can replicate it. So firstly, customer obsession. Agile insurance has to be about customer obsession. And we'll come on to who the customer is, because I think that's an interesting question for MGAs. But as a high-level principle, customer needs are changing. So from an end policyholder, for example, they want financial solutions woven into their everyday lives. And that will then transcend to what a broker demands from an MGA as well. And that's the rationale shift. So that's why an agile innovative approach is necessary, is because it's going to drive the customer experience and ultimately then deliver business growth because of a better customer experience. There was a McKinsey report I read the other day that said the customer experience leaders, they outperform their competitors, not just in top line growth, but also in bottom line growth. And I think that's to do with the operational excellence that is required to deliver the sort of seamless experience that a customer now demands. Then it's that innovative mindset, the two pizza principle is actually being replicated by insurance companies in particular. And I think also we'll mention this in a bit, but the new MGAs that are coming in operate in this way as well. The kind of InsurTech MGAs inherently operate in this way, but insurers have set up their own innovation hubs, which kind of, how do they operate? It's exactly the same way. Small teams, cross-functional, basically being tasked to deliver a better customer experience. And they own their own data, and that data acts as a kind of feedback loop, which influences how they change the project, whether they continue with it, whether they shut it down. Some examples of stuff that's kind of come out in the insurer world. So from the Aviva Digital Garage, you've got Aviva Plus, the flexible insurance, pay monthly, it's subscription-based. The Aviva Drive app, which is basically an app that's linked with a dash cam, and then the My Aviva app, which manages all the policies across a number of products in one single place. So these things are coming out of the Aviva Digital Garage because they've set up that innovation hub that operates in an agile manner in the same way as the Amazons of this world. And then operational excellence. So again, it's got to be customer driven. So more efficient processes are less frustrating for the customer. So an example for insurance industry, faster claims handling delivers a better experience for the end policyholder. How do they do that? So streamlining. I've spoken to a number of insurers and MGAs do something called systems thinking. So take a process from end to end and look at what steps can be cut out and what steps can be automated. And there's a number of things, I think increasingly so, within the insurance value chain that can be automated, from underwriting to claims handling, data processing, taking payments, even at the front end, kind of advising customers on which products they should purchase. And all that does is repurposes the workers. So I guess the big one for an MGA is if you can use automation within the underwriting process, it can repurpose the underwriters to focus on those more complex risks, which is where their expertise is best used. So you let the sort of simple risks, if you like, come through nice and easily without touching the sides, and the more complex ones that requires the underwriter expertise, it frees the underwriters up to focus on those, and that's going to drive the growth. That's going to drive the profitability. And I wanted to then, so that's insurance market as a whole, I wanted to come down into the MGA market. What specifically can MGAs do? And one of the key takeaways that you can take from this session that hopefully you'll be able to implement in some way within your business. So you know as well as I do, there are a new breed of MGAs that have come into the market. And these MGAs inherently act in an agile manner. Now I do know that they operate kind of, I guess, differently to most MGAs in that they've probably got more contact with the end customer. In fact, they're kind of closer to a delegated insurer than an underwriting agency at times. But you still need to compete with these organisations. And kind of how you can do that. One is to try and replicate their model, I guess. In which case you kind of have to flip your entire business model on its head. But for the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to assume you're not going to do that. I'm going to assume you continue the broker model, which I think is the broker model's got legs and there's real value in it, and I assume that's how most MGAs will continue to operate. And if you do that, there are still ways in which you can innovate agilely, I don't know if that's a word, innovate in an agile manner that can deliver improved customer service to whoever you think your customer is. So whether your customer is the policyholder, the broker, the capacity provider, or kind of all three, there are ways in which you can innovate in an agile manner to improve the service you offer to these entities. So just an example of some of the next-gen MGAs that you, I guess, are competing with in some regard. Note that they inherently operate in an agile manner. So they're small teams, they're obsessed with the customer, and they try new things to improve their service. So some examples here, bought by many, I'm actually going to go into a little bit more detail in them later, but kind of innovative pet insurance. And then if you look at how the other three, so I'm just going to read some quotes from their website, so how they describe themselves, I think it really shows the innovative mindset and nature and culture that they've got within them. So Slice is an example, on-demand insurance product designed for today's ecosystems is the way that they describe themselves. So it's new innovative products designed for the current day customer. Ladder, we're using technology and design to make the kind of life insurance we want for ourselves. So thinking of the customer at the end, and then using tech and design to redesign the product in order to deliver that. Hippo talk about smarter home insurance and Trov digital insurance products for innovative businesses. So you can hear from those descriptions that innovation is actually at the very heart of these organizations. And because of their nature, they naturally have those small cross-functional teams that operate in an agile manner. I think for incumbent MGAs, so you can kind of turn these blockers into growth drivers, if you like. So we talked about these blockers before: the products, distribution, i.e. customer touch points, legacy systems, and talent and culture. And you can turn them into growth drivers. So no one really thought products was an issue, and as I said, I don't think that surprises me too much, because MGAs naturally will offer the sort of non-standard products anyway, so you're probably already doing something in that regard. But there's an opportunity to think, okay, continue to think, okay, what products aren't being delivered in the market that should be, and embracing that and launching new innovative products to market in that regard. From a customer touch point, as I mentioned, your customer might be the broker, or might be the capacity provider, might be the policyholder, or all three. But thinking about who that customer is, and then how can I deliver a better customer experience to that person. So if it's the capacity provider, how can I deliver more profitability to them? If it's the broker, how can I make the way that I trade with them simpler and easier? And if it's the policyholder, how can I deliver a customer experience that makes them want to come back to me, but also makes them want to tell all their friends to come and get insurance with me? Legacy systems, so it's kind of a bite the bullet type approach. At some point, you've got to purchase new, flexible, agile systems that enable agility and rapid change. And I think self-sufficiency here is the key. Being able to configure it yourselves and change and iterate in a quick and agile manner is vital. Then from a talent and culture perspective, looking to hire people maybe from outside the insurance industry that are naturally innovative. So if there is, and I think there probably is, at least to some extent, a lack of an innovative culture within the insurance market, then let's hire people in from outside the insurance market that do have the culture of working in an agile manner and changing things. And then the way you set your teams up, so set up small cross-functional teams which are targeted on delivering the best service to the customer, the broker, the capacity provider. So rather than just having claims team, underwriting team, admin team, for example, work together. Think of the whole value chain and working together of how you can improve across the value chain the customer's experience of dealing with you as an MGA. So I'll go into bought by many as an example because I think they've done this really well. So in terms of products, they scour social media to source and develop innovative products that didn't exist before. And you can see that all of the stuff in quotes is taken from their website, help thousands of people find cover using innovative insurance products. How they've done that is through social media, looking at gaps in the market and then creating those products. How they distribute, so as I mentioned, they've got a little bit more in terms of customer touch points. So there's an online quote system with simple policy wordings. People can notify of claims online very simply. They've even got, you can access the First Vet app, so you get free access to a video link with a trained and professional vet as part of the policy that they provide. So they work really hard in terms of delivering customer service, and they've won awards for that. Legacy systems, so new InsurTech probably don't quite have the legacy constraints of an incumbent, but they know that tech sits at the heart of their offering, and they view themselves as sort of the forefront of fintech innovation. And then talent, I mean, talent and culture of InsurTech is by very nature innovative. It's tech focused. They naturally operate in an agile way. And thought by many describe tech at the heart of what they do. I think as do all kind of the new startups, InsurTechs, and essentially sum up what needs to change for incumbents well in this quote that's on the screen. Operating models need to change, growth initiatives, cost controls, sustainability activities, sure, but I think importantly, digital tech needs to be at the heart of the business. That's what's going to drive innovation and agility. And I think so digital technology is where our expertise at SSP lies, and I just wanted to take you through our story to share what we think tech for MGAs should look like to help you kind of operate in a more agile manner. So for those of you that don't know us, we've been providing core insurance and MGA software for 18 years or so now. I think many of you probably know us through our distribution services that kind of link MGAs and brokers, but we actually provide the core tech for a number of MGAs and insurance companies across the globe. You know, key insurers like Direct Line, L&G, Zurich, and MGAs like Pucker Insure, Munich Re in Australia, First Underwriting, Capura, and so on. And I'm only mentioning this just I'm going to tell the story of what we think technology for MGAs should look like and how it can allow you to operate in an agile manner. And so I'm going to tell you the story of our re-engineering of our software. So we recently invested £40 million in our new cloud-native platform for MGAs to create a kind of single cloud-native platform that covers customer and broker engagement, rating and pricing, core admin, and data analytics. So modules being used by numerous MGAs. So First Underwriting launched their MGA using the core solution, the core admin solution. Pucker used the quote and the quote feature, the sort of rating, pricing, data enrichment feature. Marker Study used what we call Intuition, which is the a data set that we've got through our view of the market, anonymized data in terms of quotes, with 1.5 billion quotes that are anonymized and then provided as a data source to them they can leverage for making business decisions. And Sure Insurance is an MGA you won't have heard of. They're in Australia, but they've got capacity from Liberty, and they use this whole platform to provide household insurance to previously uninsurable risks, thanks to integration with kind of geo services in an area which is at high flood risk. So the reason I share that is because I wanted to, that's the journey we've gone on, and I wanted to share our thinking of what tech needs to look like for an MGA if you're to operate in an agile manner. So I'll talk you through the kind of principles that are at the heart of our development strategy, and the core principles are in yellow, and then the specifics that we built out are in white. As I mentioned earlier, I think self-sufficiency is key. Too many of the MGAs that I speak to say essentially the same story. In order to make changes to their products, pricing, rating, risk screens, even documents, they've got to rely on the professional services team within their chosen software vendor. We think this kind of adds an unnecessary middleman, if you like, that reduces the ability to iterate quickly and, in essence, inhibits innovation. So we build our tech to empower you, so with the tools to empower you as business users to make changes quickly and easily. And that's vital if you're going to be able to build, test, and iterate and operate in an agile manner. You need to be able to make changes on the fly quickly and easily. Then, we talked about customer obsession driving agile innovation. So tech needs to be customer centric. So in the last few years, we kind of built out front-end portals for policyholders and brokers that allow full self-service, from quote and buy to adjustments, renewals, endorsements, accessing documents, etc. I think this need actually has become even more apparent in the last 3 months because everything has to be done online now. Brokers and policyholders need to be able to interact with the MGA 24/7 via the web, and that's, having configurable tools that allow you to do this is really important. I mentioned the feedback loop in agile innovation, so you're needing the data and the metrics to test how effective a project has been. So this is part of the reason why we teamed up with AWS, is we can deliver a data lake which can be leveraged for real-time business intelligence, machine learning, AI can be applied to it. And then, as I mentioned, we've got our own data analysis of 1.5 billion quotes, which we can provide to you as an MGA that you can then use to see how you're performing in the market, where are the hotspots, where am I leaving money on the table, that sort of thing. And so that data analytics drives the feedback loop of how effective has an innovation been. And then finally, I know cloud is probably a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but I do think that you need cloud native tech if you're going to be truly agile. So cloud native tech can scale up and down. It's seamlessly integrated into data lakes. You can integrate with other devices, software, data sources. And because it's delivered as a service with regular updates, your cloud tech never becomes legacy. So you can always be equipped to be first to market, and you don't have those legacy problems that I think it was about 53% of you highlighted as a inhibitor to innovation. Having cloud native software, having software as a service that updates on a regular basis means you've never got legacy tech. It's constantly improving. At that point, I think there's a trend a little bit in the market of something I call cloud washing, which is basically lifting and shifting legacy tech into the cloud. And that does still leave you with the legacy problems. You need cloud native software that's developed for the cloud, that is delivered as a service. That's how you gain the real benefits in terms of scalability, in terms of agility, efficiency, flexibility. You don't gain those. You don't gain all of those advantages if you just lift and shift legacy tech into the cloud. So that's what we think software that enables innovation should be. It should be cloud native, puts you in control, enables you to deliver an exceptional customer experience, and provides real-time data feedback on business performance. So nearly coming to the end. So I talked about learning objectives at the start. I hope I've gone through explaining what agile innovation is, the basic principles, how that's then transcended into other verticals, the relevance to insurers and MGAs, and then finally I just wanted to kind of 3 key steps that I think can be put in place in order to begin to innovate in a more agile manner. Number 1, and I think this was mentioned last week on your webinar, is start with the customer. So work out who the customer is. Is it the broker? Is it the policyholder? Is it the capacity provider? Is it a combination of the 3? And then actively make a list in ways in which you can improve the service that you're delivering to them. Secondly, then embrace agile innovation. So take that list, rank it in terms of where most value is going to be delivered to them, and then break down those top ranked items into small increments that can be delivered by cross-functional teams. So you're going to have to slightly reorganize the way your teams operate in terms of having cross-functional small teams that are tasked on improving that customer experience, and then get them to deliver this project in short sprints, and don't expect to have all the information at the start, and certainly don't expect to get it right first time, but look to have about 70% of the information you ideally have, build it, and then use the feedback loop of customer metrics to test how effective it's been, and where do you need to iterate, where do you need to change, or do we just park that as a nice idea that didn't work? And in order to do that, I think you need to view tech as an enabler of this. So look for solutions that facilitate operating in that agile manner. So cloud native solutions that provide the data feedback and put you in control of changing both the kind of back office flow, so you can get the operational benefits, but then also the front end, how you interact with your customers and your brokers. I think if you do those 3 things well, then you do deliver a better customer experience to whoever your customer is. And ultimately, that's how you drive growth through agile innovation. So I think that's my time in terms of presenting. So if I can hand back and open the floor to any questions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Stephen. Really good presentation on there. I always do like to have kind of 3 kind of practical ways of taking the information that you've given us and breaking it down into a few simple steps or some guides as to what you can do following this. So thank you very much for that. Just as a reminder, if you've got any questions, please send through them via the chat function, and I can raise them with Stephen. We've had a couple come in so far, so I'll just go through these then, Stephen. So could you run through some key areas where MGAs could innovate to improve the experience of each of the potential customers you mentioned? Just because MGAs have different potential stakeholders, which more are brokers, capacity providers, as well as policyholders.
Yeah, okay. So if I take them one by one, so think of brokers first. I think so. It is going to be different depending on the MGA, but high level, I think it's got to be about the way that you trade with your brokers. So you've got to make it as easy as possible to trade with a broker in a way that isn't difficult for them. So whether that be via your extranet or through software houses. And I think there's probably more to it now, and particularly I think sort of loosely mentioned it earlier, COVID-19 has probably increased the need for this, is you've got to have the kind of full cycle self-service portals that give the broker 24/7 access to the MGA so that they can service the client better. And that's certainly what we're seeing when we're speaking to MGAs around the market, is that the need for that broker portal that is full self-service is increasing, because you've got to be able to, the broker has to be able to interact with you in a way that suits them. That gives them a better experience. I think then how, so if you service claims, for example, how can you make that process quicker and better? Because that ultimately makes the way that the broker, the customer experience the broker can deliver to the end policyholder better, and therefore they're happier with the experience. So how can you automate some of the claims process? You know, how easy is it to upload a bordereau import, for example, in the format that they give you? Look at operational ways in which you can improve the service that you provide to the brokers. I'll go very quickly through the other two. So policyholders, I think the key focus is the products, and it was interesting that no one thought product innovation was an inhibitor, but so maybe MGAs naturally already kind of fill those niches, but I think those niches is changing. So just having a mindset of looking at, okay, there's a growing trend toward flexible, on-demand, innovative products, both in personal and commercial lines. Yeah. How can we adapt our products to meet those changing customer needs? And MGAs are naturally in a position to do this, and I think probably innovate in this way naturally anyway, but I think that's a good way to do it for the policyholders. And then capacity providers, it's all about profitability. So what can you infuse data within your underwriting process to deliver more profitability? That's, you know, we've worked with a number of insurers and MGAs in terms of within the underwriting process, using data enrichment to both improve the precision of pricing, but also deliver a better customer experience to the policyholder or the broker. But if you infuse data, you can get a more precise quote, and you're therefore able to increase your profitability and better your combined operating ratio.
Yep.
And then it's about management information as well, I think. So could you, this is just an example off the top of my head, could you create a capacity provider portal where you can give certain performance metrics in real time to the capacity provider, so that they can come in and have a look and see where set metrics that you've agreed, how are you performing on that? That then gives them a better experience of dealing with you as an MGA. So just some examples, but I think there are loads.
Thank you. That's a pretty comprehensive answer, so thank you. Just the final question was then just regarding what you were talking about in terms of Amazon and their innovation. Do they not have any risk mitigation or governance in place, or do you think there's a balance between innovation and risk?
Yeah, it's a fair question. So they do have some governance in place, although I think in classic Amazon style, it's not kind of standard governance. So this will tell you way too much about myself, because I've looked into this in far too much detail. But before any idea is launched at Amazon, you have to A, define the specific metrics in which you're going to measure its success, and then B, provide a 6-page document, which is written in prose rather than bullet points, which explains your idea, how you think it's going to work, where it's going to affect the business, those sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they do this, particularly that second bit, is because it's easy to kind of pull the wool over people's eyes and not think something through on PowerPoint. It's far harder to do it in full written language.
Yep.
And so you kind of have to think of more things to make it to the 6 pages. And so they do that as a way of making people think through their ideas a bit more. And then obviously they don't accept all the ideas. You know, there's going to be some checks and balances in place. But I think the big thing is actually about course correction. Mm-hmm. So the stats on Agile is that the project risk is about 76% lower when you operate in an Agile manner, because you can change the way you're going based on the feedback loop you're getting from data. So I think there's governance in place, but also Agile innovation in and of itself acts as risk mitigation.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, well, I like the 6-pager point, so that's a useful takeaway as well. That's it in terms of questions that we've received, so we can look to end the webinar there. Just want to say thank you very much, Stephen, for speaking today. It's not easy on your own, so thank you very much for going through all the introduction and the background into Agile, and for hosting today. Thank you also to the people who've dialed in and listened, and thanks for the questions that came through. And I will end the webinar there.